But anyway, it's not going to be good. Biden's going to start out with a 100-day mask mandate on the American people. It's not going to quit. Here's one of the reasons why they did the COVID thing. First of all, they wanted to get people used to living under emergency orders, and they've done that in spades. And there has been no court case that has ever challenged the legitimacy of the emergency orders as unconstitutional, and it's flatly unconstitutional. The legislature cannot give unlimited powers to a governor or a health official, less a health official, to violate fundamental rights that are enumerated in the Constitution. In Utah, for example, you have your fundamental rights, like mirroring the Bill of Rights, that are enumerated, meaning actually listed in the Constitution. And you have a phrase in here, in our Utah Constitution, that says that you cannot interpret that away. And so what did they do? The legislature passed an emergency bill giving the power to the health officials and the governor to essentially do anything with private property and your lives. Well, that's a violation of your fundamental rights. There's been one court case where the governor's, two court cases in states, in Michigan and California, where the governor's emergency orders were ruled unconstitutional on very narrow grounds. Now, up until that time, we won a lot of cases on narrow grounds, whereby the courts would say, you've treated religion in your restrictions different than casinos, and so you can't do that. That's, a violation of the Constitution, but not because the emergency powers themselves are unconstitutional. The judge was saying you have to treat them equally under your emergency powers. Well, that doesn't give me much hope for the correct constitutional position. What was bad was the attorneys didn't even try to challenge the fact that the emergency powers themselves went too far and were unconstitutional. None of them. There hasn't been a single case in the United States where they have challenged the actual core emergency powers as unconstitutional. And that's because in law schools, they teach them case law. And so lawyers are just deathly afraid of going up against years and years of case law. And so they're very reluctant to challenge that. And so what happened in Michigan is that the Supreme Court ruled 7-0, by the way. Even the Democrats voted for this, that the emergency powers were illegal once the legislature of Michigan had refused to extend the governor's emergency powers. Now that was wonderful. 7-0. But it was only ruled illegal because of what? Because the legislature refused to extend it. Does the legislature have the power to legislate away your fundamental rights? No. That's the difference between a constitutionally limited republic and raw democracy. Raw democracy, the legislature, the majority, can do anything, even take away your rights. That's wrong. In California, a state judge ruled the same thing about Governor Newsom, that his emergency powers violated the Constitution because the legislature did not go along with it. And he was trying to change the election rules and mail-in ballots, etc., without use of the legislature. And said, you can't do that. But once again, it was on narrow grounds that his emergency powers were not going through the legislature, as if the legislature has the right to violate your rights. That's the assumption they're making, that if a legislature can do anything, and that's not right. So I am very, very fearful that the courts are not going to defend our fundamental rights. In Utah, Morgan Philpott has filed a case, and the courts are just taking their time getting to that case. And filed clear back in September, and they still haven't brought that to trial. And our governor, Mr. Herbert, in August 20th, the legislature refused to extend his emergency order. And what did he do? He created a new emergency order, just changing a couple of words, and claimed, this is a new game now. It's a new emergency order. And that went to trial. That has not gone to trial. I think the Utah judges are just slowing this down so they don't have to make a ruling. But look back at Michigan and California, where the judges really ruled straightforward, your emergency order is no longer valid. Did that stop Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan? Not one whit. She just switched tack and says, I'm going to use this other statute and complain emergencies under this health code, under the health code. And the judges did nothing. They didn't hold her in contempt. They didn't send any marshals to arrest and so it shows. Now, I'll tell you, if Donald Trump had ever violated or thumbed his nose at a Supreme Court ruling, they would have had the police and the media would have said, arrest that guy and haul him off to jail. But not when they're on the side of the left. Governor Newsom has just thumbed his nose at the state court. Even though he's appealing it, he's just continuing on issuing new emergency powers. So this is really serious. What I have said years ago, it was almost 10 years ago, I spoke at UVU and I said, my talk was called, Why the Constitution is Dead and How to Change It. Well, it really is dead. Listen, when they can violate any right they want and the courts will uphold that or won't stop them, your Constitution is dead. I don't care if they still use it in court trials under things. When it comes down to your constitutional rights, to go to church, to protest, to speak freely, to have free speech, it's gone because they won't defend it. You just won't win in courts now. That's the problem. So that's how serious this is in this COVID thing, is that they have created a monster to justify taking away your rights, and I don't think it's ever going away.